He's been traveling, crisscrossing the country for Kamala Harris. Booker, if you don't know, is the charismatic U.S. Senator from New Jersey. He repeatedly makes headlines for his work on criminal justice reform, climate change, economic inequality. His optimism and his passion for bipartisanship makes him a real individual in a very divisive landscape. He's like an actual bridge builder, which feels weird right now. He's always pushing for us to do better and be a more inclusive America. And that is why we need him this week to be our chill beast of the week. We can feel better, I promise.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's such a thrill to be on. And I've had the privilege of being embarrassed by Samantha B in public.
Oh, you are such a delight. You scamp.
My chief of staff, who's texted, is here, so she's thrilled. This New Jersey series. But she goes, I think one of the best things I've ever seen on TV is Samantha B's profile of Ted Cruz. And I'm like, really? I said, hey, show it to me.
That is so funny. Well, you are in it right now, and you are on a multi-state tour. You are jet setting. Please describe what that is like to us. We want to know.
Jumping on plane after plane after plane and running around the country. In many ways, it's a privilege because we have a great nation and people are phenomenal. It is definitely exhausting. I have lost my voice. I think I am a walking petri dish. The excitement and the enthusiasm and the energy at these rallies has been very, very encouraging to my spirit and just hopeful. And I don't think I've ever had an election like this in my life where from Senate seats to House seats to the presidency, you just don't know where this is going to land. It's so up in the air.
Do you think if you'd had more time, if the vice president had had a longer run up to the election, it would have been easier? Or do you think this short span has actually got everybody fired up?
I have no idea. It's just too hard to prognosticate on that. I do know we are where we are, and I do have this chill about what's at stake.
Do you think that we're talking about the gender gap in voting in general enough in this election? Because I just feel like, we're talking about like black male voters, but why are we not talking as much about why so many white men, especially young white men, are planning to vote for Donald Trump if they vote at all? I'm so frustrated by this. I don't know what to do. Tell us what to do. Senator Booker, please. We have problems.
I think we're in a tough moment in America. First of all, men are deeply unhappy. There's a loneliness problem, less friends, less connection, less community. Got to start talking as a nation about how we're going to restore and repair community, how we're going to redeem some of the best cultural values of our nation that remind us that we belong to each other. And so lots of people are writing about this, how these problems are being supercharged by social media that preys upon, designs algorithms for our hating of each other, for our outrage. And I worry about the shearing forces in American society that are pitting us against each other and pulling us apart.
Do you read polls? Do you pickle yourself in polls in the morning? You wake up and go,
it's a polar coaster. You go up.
It's too much.
It's too much anxiety for me to read a daily poll. And then I still remember this article of the New York Times where they said, let us show you how we got it wrong in the previous years. Well, you did get it wrong. And so when you're telling me that your sampling and your modeling has been off, why am I letting myself wake up in the morning and see Kamala only up by 1 point in Michigan, letting that get me upset? This is one of those times where you just do everything you can. As my coach used to say in football, don't look at the scoreboard. Just on this play, do as best you can to advance the ball.
Do you think that we are prepared for the period of time? Whatever happens on Election Day, God willing, it is the outcome we are all aiming for here. Do you think that we are prepared for the time period between Election Day and Inauguration Day? Because I'm reading about those January 6 rioters, who are just in their special prison wing, just running it like the mafia, I'm not sure that we are prepared as a nation for how much more radicalized people are becoming in this period of time. Can you make me feel better about that or no? That's okay.
I can't. I wasn't prepared for January 6th. I would have never imagined that I would be on the Senate floor talking to Mark Kelly saying we should leave the Senate floor last. We're younger senators in a body that the average age is significantly older than me. And we just said, Let's take 6. Let's take the end, just in case people break through those doors and we have to fight them off. And then I remember getting back to my office after being secured when the Senate was running through tunnels, United States Senate running through tunnels to get to a secure location away from the rioters who were screaming bloody murder. 5 police officers died as a result of their injuries that day. I remember seeing wounded police officers on our escape. And then I turned on the TV, and the first image I saw, just feet from where I sit in the Senate chamber, was a Confederate flag. This man is now more capable, more prepared to not accept the results of this election and to take action, and has more acolytes in more positions of power in the House and the Senate who can't even now, like J.D. Vance can't, say that the last election was or the outcome was right, and I support the results. Those folks who somehow are luxuriating in this idea that our democracy is secure do not know how fragile democracies are around the globe, and how many democracies, from Turkey to Hungary to a president who loves Viktor Orban, are slipping towards authoritarianism, attacks on the free press, attacks on democratic norms and traditions. So this guy is not hiding the ball. He is telling us openly.
Why do you think there hasn't been more resistance within the Republican Party? Because we know that so many Republican politicians don't like Donald Trump. Why has he been able to so successfully scare them?
Well, I mean, I have seen courageous Republican leader after courageous Republican leader, from Jeff Flake, right-wing guy, to Cheney, right-wing woman, stand up and say the right thing. These are people who I don't have that much common ground. Jeff was a dear friend, but they stood up and said the right thing, and there was a consequence. They are not in office right now. And that is, I think, the chilling effect, that dissenters can't stay elected. And I think the worst mistake, I always tell young people, never, ever confuse position with purpose. Life is much more about having a clear purpose than being consumed with a position. Because as soon as you reverse that, then you'll do everything possible to stay in a job and lose your soul, lose your clarity, lose your moral compass.
Do you think it will help if I personally phone bank more?
Yes, it actually will. In 2016, in Wisconsin, 1 vote per voting machine different, a few votes per precinct different, would have changed the outcome of that election. From Maine to Montana, these are elections that have been turned on less than 1,000 votes in each one. What you do in these final days matter, and what will be your best measure of your devotion to this country? Will it be sedentary agitation where you're so upset about what's going on, but you'd fail to get up?
So, Senator Booker, I have one question for you, which is just that you ran for president. I'm very curious as to how you reached the decision that you are ready for that and that you can be the biggest boss in the whole of America.
Yeah, so I think it's what hubris to look in the mirror and think that you can do the most impossible job in the world. When I ran for mayor to lead a city in crisis, I realized that I alone could not do that job, but I had an incredible team of people around me that helped to turn the fortunes of a city. But now this is a country. And so I think that I had hard conversations with myself, some that you might not expect. Like, could I order an attack in which civilians would die? That was a hard thing for me to look in the mirror and have to think through. But ultimately, I decided to run because I felt that in the Democratic field that there was nobody that could carry the urgency I felt, which was around this awful breaking apart of our nation in a tribalistic way. That I didn't want to run an election simply about paid family leave. I ran for a real purpose that I felt like we needed a shift in our politics from hating one another to elevating the higher virtues that understand that we need one another.
And to what extent do you think that division is driven by bad actors, by the Chinese on TikTok, using TikTok, by the Russians using all sorts of kind of social media against Americans? Because we know it's in their interest to sow disrest and confusion here.
Yeah, well, I just want to start off with words from Abraham Joshua Heschel, who I think said it so best. And he said, in a free society, some are to blame, but all are responsible. And so I just, like, anybody who complains about the divisions in our country, who is not doing something about it, you are part of the problem. You may not be to blame for the problem. And I'll give you an example. So I'm in a red state campaigning, and I'm getting on a plane, and people are saying, hello, Senator, not Senator, hello, like being nice to me, joking with me. And I sit down in my seat next to a mom and a daughter, 80 and 60. The 80-year-old who was sitting next to me says, who are you? Are you a professional athlete? And as a big black guy, part of me wants to be insulted by that assumption. Part of me is like, my ego kicks in, is like, well, I could be. I mean, come on. But I look at her and I go, no, ma'am, I'm not a professional athlete. And she goes, well, who are you? And I go, ma'am, I'm Cory Booker. I'm a United States Senator. And the first thing she wants to know, which most Americans want to know when they meet random congressperson about, is whose team are you on? My team or their team? Which tribe are you in? So she looks at me and she goes, are you a Democrat or Republican? I look at her, I take a deep breath because I know where this is going. I go, ma'am, I'm a Democrat. And she literally crosses her arms, looks angry, turns her back to me and looks over her head and she goes, I should have brought my Trump hat. Now, I know this tune. And so I look at this woman and I go, ma'am, Donald Trump, he signed two of the biggest bills I wrote into law, one that liberated tens of thousands of people from prison, and the other that got billions of dollars invested in the lowest income rural and urban spaces. And now she looks at me, she turns back around, she looks downright confused. By the time the plane lands, we're laughing, talking about our families, our traditions, all the things that connected us. Why do we live in a country where we cannot change the tune and realize that when you poll the major issues in America, from guns to abortion, we all agree on so much that could advance the cause of our country, but we allow our politics to tear us apart. And yeah, I go sit in classified briefings and hear what the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans are doing to exploit our hatred, to go on these platforms, pretend they're us, and whip up as much misinformation and hate as we can. Brene Brown is right. It's hard to hate up close, so pull people in.
You have so much work to do on your planes. You have to talk to every individual person that you run into in the next little while. This was amazing. Thank you so much. Oh, this was great.
Yeah, I'm worried that we're altering the outcome of the election by keeping you any longer. I think you need to get back on another plane. Thank you so much for joining us.
I always say, if America hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough. There's a lot of heartbreaking stuff out here.
I do not know all things, but I do know that was a very pleasurable conversation. I always feel very spiritually uplifted after talking to Senator Booker.
His description of being on the floor with Mark Kelly, it's very profound. And I do think people don't understand how easy it is to lose a democracy and how impossible it is to get it back.
Phone banking is the key, I heard.
I once phone banked for Val Demings in Florida.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but people didn't understand what I was saying. This was a long time ago, and I really wasn't very good at it. I think I asked the wrong questions. I was like, could you tell me which way you're going to vote? And they were like, hell no, and put the phone down.
I know Val Demings. This feels so random to me, and I love it. Oh, I wish that I had been on those calls just listening.
I think I show up better in other ways.
Showing up in other ways.
Oh, showing up in other ways.
The Joanna Coles and Sam B story.
Well, you should go and phone bank.
Oh, yeah, always. The dulcet tones of my voice, people love it. They're like, tell me what to do. I'll just do it. I hear that voice and I'm just compelled.